Thanks, Chair. Minister, yesterday I received a heartbreaking letter from a woman down the country who had a baby in the 1960s, a baby that was taken away from her within minutes. She was quite ill herself, and when she came to and was spoken to, she was told that that child had died a week later. No autopsy, no body, no closure, and she's left, I suppose, wondering, is he out there thinking he is the child of somebody else? And I think we have to remind ourselves that at the heart of all of this are human cases, people who've been severely damaged by the actions of this state, and who we are and where we come from are vital questions for so many people. And I think in that context, when you made the point, as you did earlier at committee, that this inquiry has to be timely and cost-effective, that would raise some alarm bells with people, in the sense that absolutely the investigation has to be urgent because of the age profile. There can't be any more delays, but it has to be inclusive, and I do think that it has to be prepared to expand the terms of reference as it goes on and situations emerge. And we do have to get the balance right in that regard, and I think some of the groups are worried in that context. One of the biggest problems that's already been flagged is that there seems to be a Chinese wall being put into between the investigation into the homes and the issue of adoption, because it keeps being said, well, adoption will be addressed in the new legislation. It won't. Adoption information and tracing legislation will not in any way deal with the illegal and criminal activity which took place around these forced adoptions, much less holding people to account. And I think that is one of the biggest problems with the way things seem to be emerging that we need to address early on, because it has to investigate the issue of illegal adoptions, which were facilitated through the homes, the religious institutions and the state, in particular the Department of External Affairs, who, let's remember, provided passports for illegally registered children to leave this country and be given to others. The idea that the role of the adoption board would be excluded, I think, to me, would be absolutely should not be allowed to happen. And I think from what we're reading so far, there isn't an adequate grasping of the impact of forced and illegal adoptions, and that has to be addressed. What is required here is a truth-finding investigation that gets to the heart of things. And in fairness, Paul Redmond from Adoption Rights Now made the point that it is a little bit worrying that the only mention of illegal adoptions was to kind of sanitise it by calling it illegal registrations, which he said was like comparing an armed robbery to an unauthorised withdrawal, and it doesn't take it seriously enough into account. It is the case that a lot of this information was known. June and what emerged there was known. The first inquiry was in the 1930s into the Corrigan report into abuse behind closed doors and covered up. Mike Malott wrote about illegal adoptions 17 years ago with supportive evidence on all of these matters. Again, it was well known, and I do think we have to make the point about the United Nations hearing in Geneva this week, where Sir Nigel Rodley made the point that the extent of the social issues in Ireland, which he referred to as being quite a collection. And that collection does involve, in many ways, women and the state's attitude to women and their sexuality from all sorts of things. And that's continuing on to today, like where we do fail to deal with rape and fatal fetal abnormalities in cases of abortion. So in that sense, I do see why people would have asked for an international person to take charge of this investigation. And I echo the points made by Deputy O'Quailon. I would be worried about Judge Murphy. Now, I know you made the point at committee this morning that she is the chair and it's open to her to bring on board others, and that you would favour an international involvement. I think that should be a requirement, that we should do that, because her report on symphysiotomy has been, if you like, well, the UN would disagree with its conclusion, and particularly the fact that it didn't hold anybody to account. I think going forward on this, whether it will work or not, depends on the level of ongoing engagement that you're prepared to make and work with the survivors' organisations. That will be the key to this. A lot of the points have been made about what's been excluded. Obviously, the county homes and Magdalenes have to be included, the vaccination trials. There's been no mention so far of criminal prosecutions, of of the religious orders being dealt with in terms of the amount of money that was made by selling these babies, the omission of what's called the second layer in between the mother and baby homes and the Magdalene laundries. The whole role of holding centres and hostels have to be included as well, and critically a lot of the issues around adopted people. Last point, Chair, is I would echo the points made by Deputy Murphy in relation to the burial and the whole angel plot side of this scenario, and there's no reason why memorials and these plots cannot be developed in tandem with the work being done in this committee and in this investigation. I think that the Coalition of Mother and Baby Home Survivors have really summed it up when they've said that they're determined that no one is going to get left behind, and they conclude by saying, and we mean it. And they do. This has to be comprehensive and expandable, and it has to be survivor-led, or else there will be reports into the future.